let me start with a little bit of background. I don't have the hype man skills that he has, so I will not have you stand up. But I will be playing a number of fun little games where you can call out answers as we go through this. So as interactive as you guys want to make this thing. I'm Tyler Shields. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm currently involved in a startup based in Los Angeles. I live here in Cary, and I commute to Los Angeles every other week for my startup. And looking around this office, I kind of wish we'd have done it here, because this is pretty amazing what you guys have going. I haven't been here for about 2 to 3 years into this building. Super impressed. It's quite amazing. Anybody know what this date is? I'm pretty sure nobody's going to know. But
it's August 20th.
Hey, there's one that knows. Anybody know what happened on this date? A certain guy released a certain paper. The guy looks kind of like this. And now this might be sacrilege because I'm going to make fun of one of our startup heroes. But it's Mark Andreessen. Right, he does kind of look like the Conan guy, I'm just saying. On that date that you saw there, August 20th, 2011, he released the Software is Eating the World paper. I don't know about you guys, but it was a seminal paper for me. It made a lot of impact on all of the work that I've been doing up until that date. It made a lot of impact on, I think, a lot of future work that came out since 2011. That if you're building a product, you're not really building a product anymore, you're building software that helps the product, right? The product is no longer the individual physical item, it's usually the software that runs that item. So here's his paper. It was released August 20th, 2011, Why Software is Eating the World. Some interesting quotes from that paper from Mark. We're in the middle of a dramatic and broad technological economic shift in which software companies are poised to take over large swaths of the economy. Software is eating much of the value chain of industries widely viewed as primarily existing in the physical world. All of the technology required to transform industries through software finally works. This was 6 years ago, so it took that long to get there. Over the next 10 years, many more industries will be disrupted by software, and the battles between incumbents and software-powered insurgents will be epic. Creative destruction would be proud. November 2nd, 2015, this guy released a paper. All right, so I'm nowhere as cool as Mark Andreessen, not even remotely close to as cool as Mark Andreessen. But I did wear a Viking hat, so I thought that was kind of close, and I don't have a cone head. So the paper I released on this day was Services Are Eating the Universe. And I was inspired by the work that Mark had done in writing his software paper. But in essence, services are eating the universe means that no longer a business is going to create products at all. Businesses are going forward will create only services. And that's a corollary to software eating the world, in that the software is what you sell when you create a product. But in reality, going forward, 2016 and beyond, it's not the software you'll sell, it's the service that enables the software that enables it. How come now? Why now? Well, there's 4 reasons why it's 2015, 2016 that services do take over the universe. Internet of Things, cloud, connectivity, and mobility. It's these 4 tectonic shifts coming together all at the same time that are allowing services to run over products. So how many of you guys are writing software that you would consider a product, and how many of you are running software that you would consider a service? Let's hear services first. Clap. How many people are making a product? A couple of you. By the end of it, my goal is to convert you to think of your product as a service by the end of this presentation. So IoT, cloud connectivity, mobility, let's kind of run through each of those very quickly. The Internet of Things. Tons of different numbers here. Everybody's got their different predictions on size and growth rate and all of those things. Suffice it to say that Internet of Things is going to be huge. Everything is going to be connected. That could be good, could be bad. Some people are predicting as many as 50 billion connected devices by 2020. It'll be at least that. But when is a thing a useful connected thing, right? That's the question. So this picture you see here is a water bottle that has an app. It's a connected water bottle, and the app tells you how much water you have in said water bottle. Looking at the bottle could have probably given you that same information. However, they decided to make it an internet-connected thing. This one here is called the Egg Minder. I'm not exactly sure what it mines, but it's an internet-connected egg holder tray for your fridge. Again, not quite sure what the point of that internet-connected thing is. How about the Owlet, which is actually a baby monitor built into the slipper for a baby, because the traditional baby monitors where you hear your kid wake up apparently don't work well enough anymore. And last but not least, smart products for better sleep, a $200 onesie, so that you know when your child goes to the bathroom in their onesie. All right, 200 bucks. I'm not buying a dozen or 2 dozen of those. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. So when does a thing become a useful connected thing? These things aren't useful to us today, right? They become useful. Oh, I forgot one, sorry. The Bluetooth toilet out of Japan. I'm not sure what it tells you, what it does, but it is Bluetooth connected to your phone for some kind of usefulness. They become useful when they provide a service that people want, okay? Internet of Things in isolation is worthless. Internet of Things providing a service that people want to consume and use has value. So cloud and innovation. Cloud and innovation is the second tectonic plate that's coming together that is forcing things to change today. I imagine the vast majority, if I asked the question to clap, the vast majority of you would tell me that you're doing something in the cloud, meaning you have a backend service in the cloud, you're using SaaS, you're using PaaS or IaaS or something to support your systems in the cloud. And that's great, because the cloud enables collaboration, innovation, execution, creativity, and sharing. And these are the key cornerstones of why innovation is so much faster today. This is game time. All right, reaching 50 million users, starting at the top. How long did it take in years, the telephone, to reach 50 million users? Anyone want to guess?
100 years.
100 years. Close, that was a really good guess, 75 years. How about the transistor radio? Anyone?
Still isn't there.
38 years. Television? 25 is a guess. 13 years. World Wide Web? 4. Facebook? 3.5. iPod? 3. AOL? 2.5. Draw something. The stupid little game where you draw things on your phone. Anybody want to tell me how long it took me to get to 50 million? 50 days to get to 50 million users. Angry Birds Space. 35 days to 50 million users, over 1 million users per day on that particular app. So what does this mean for you guys? The speed of cloud, the speed of innovation is faster than ever before, okay? You may not get over 1 million users a day. I hope you all do. But you may not get over 1 million users a day. But at the end of the day, the speed at which you're gaining, the speed at which you can innovate, the speed at which you can build applications has never before been seen. Another tectonic plate that's coming into play here is always-on connectivity. I travel a ton. I'm on planes almost weekly, at least 3 weeks a month. The job that I do in Los Angeles for the startup in Los Angeles couldn't be done 5 to 6 years ago with the state of internet connectivity on airplanes. We've got to the point where internet connectivity, or connectivity in general, is literally ubiquitous. You don't even need offline modes for most of your apps anymore. You still have to consider them for certain places, certain markets that might not be as advanced, but in general, pretty much have always-on connectivity today. And you're mobile. You work from anywhere. I literally received an updated copy of this deck, actually an older version of this deck, because I needed some slides on it, as I parked the car out on Main Street. Synced a couple of slides I needed into this deck right before I walked in, tethered from my mobile phone. Mobility, I can literally work from anywhere. I take calls from the golf course constantly. Companies have historically had the power, okay? It used to be that the company selling a product had the power to define what the product looked like, pretty much had the capability to advertise and push products down the throats of their customers and tell the customers what they should buy, what they should use, and what the right way to kind of do things with their product is. That really has shifted. Now, because of mobility, the customers are in charge. And there's nothing more important than the feedback from your customers to determine the success of your service or your product that you're building. So those are the four primary trends. that are causing the big shift, that are causing services to become more and more important. Let's talk a little bit of financial side. So historically, I'm a comp side guy. I've built products in the past, but then I went to the dark side and actually went over to the business world for a while and spent some time doing finance stuff, I'm currently doing marketing. That being said, this fundamental shift that we've seen in the last 5 to 7 years in businesses across the board is an extremely important reason why you're actually building a service and not a product today. And that's customers, in particular B2B, and even B2C to some degree, don't want to use CapEx. They want to use OpEx. So let's get into a little bit of the difference between CapEx and OpEx for those of you that may not be aware. CapEx is any business expense that is intended to create benefit for the organization beyond the current fiscal year. Okay? Basically, that's plunking down 100 grand, buy some servers, physical boxes, putting them in a data center. That's a capital expenditure. OpEx, expenses occurred in the course of ordinary business such as sales, general administrative expenses. So instead of buying the server, let's say we rent a cloud service. It turns into an operational expense as opposed to an upfront capital expense. Okay? There's a number of financial reasons why businesses and buyers and consumers love OpEx. I'm not going to get into the finance side of this, but suffice it to say that OpEx has better tax implications. Okay? You use the money in the moment. You don't have to track depreciation over a number of years. OpEx is a very important aspect to the way buyers are buying things today. Another reason companies like it, as I'm sure you guys all know, is OpEx is a pay-as-you-grow model. You don't have to plunk down $100,000 for a bunch of servers to run your startup anymore. You pay $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever the OpEx cost is, to a cloud provider, a service provider, to serve you the things that you need to operate your business. It's consumption-based as opposed to upfront cost. And it's attractive to small and mid-sized businesses. Start small and grow large, and at the end of the day, you can really minimize your costs and increase your profits. Finally, OpEx removes the guesswork. It used to be you'd have to buy a big server, estimate what your requirements of load were going to be, estimate what your throughput requirements were, your CPU requirements. There's a lot of guessing going on. And what ends up happening there is that you always end up overshooting pretty significantly on what your estimates are going to be, quite frankly, because you don't want to undershoot. So you always end up going way higher than you need to, which costs you a lot more in CapEx. Okay? So at the end of the day, don't fight the pace of innovation. Okay? Products are changing. So we've seen OpEx, CapEx, we've seen speed to market, we've seen cloud, we've seen mobility and connectivity, all causing the change to services, all pushing the buyer to go to services. How quickly do products change today? Super, super fast. Faster than ever before. And what you see here is a photo of the Tesla. The Tesla 3 just came out. I can't remember how many people lined up to buy the Tesla 3. Literally the day it came out, they sold out of them almost immediately. I'm basically saying that the future for Tesla is not to sell cars. The future for Tesla is to sell service. You buy the car at cost or potentially even at a loss with the expectation that you will pay service fees on this car for the rest of your usage of the car, for the time that you own this car. So don't fight the pace of innovation. Why do I say that? Because Tesla can keep pushing updates to the car. The car is now a mobile computer piece of software. They can push new updates, new components, new features to you, which will make you want to actually spend a monthly cost to just run that car. All right. Double rainbow, what does this mean to you as entrepreneurs here at the Underground? So I get a little bit existential here, and just something to think about, because I don't know if I'm right on this one, even remotely close. But I believe that ownership, the concept of ownership in the next 50 years will die. So the concept of actually owning individual items will become far less important, which is another mandatory reason why you need to build software, services, not products. The concept of owning a car is already dying in major cities around the world. People are using Zipcar. They're just saying, hey, you know what, I'm not even going to own it. I'm not even going to own the car. If I want to go somewhere, I hop in the Zipcar, or I take public transit. It's dying rapidly. Home ownership, fundamentally changing in major city centers again. People are choosing to rent as opposed to buy, mostly because they can't afford to buy because of the astronomical prices. But when they look at the long-term holding value, it's not worth it to them to actually hold that asset. So ownership is going to die. If ownership of products die, how do businesses keep making money when their products die? They have to have a service. They have to have something that's hooked into it. So just to drive home that point, the concept of a loss leader. I think a lot of you that have built products or are building products should consider the fact that your product could become, at some point, a loss leader to a service or a technology that you wrap around that product. A loss leader is essentially a product sold at a low price, at cost, or below cost, with the intention of locking that user into your physical item for a long time with some reoccurring revenue costs on some other section. So let's talk about some examples of services that are reinventing and taking over products. Uber. It's obviously a car service. A lot of us, I mentioned cities, people are choosing to use Uber, Lyft, and Zipcar as opposed to actually owning cars. Spotify. I don't buy music anymore. I haven't bought music in years. I don't even pirate music anymore because I pay $10 a month to Google Music to just have access to everything you could possibly want. Netflix, everybody, so I don't know if there's a lot of young folks in here, y'all may not have the old DVD collections that I had, literally hundreds of pirated DVDs back in the day, that you ripped them all and you put them on your hard drive, tapes too, you put them on your hard drive, and then so I have a terabyte of drive space full of movies that I never watched, and now I just pay $9 a month to Netflix or $15 a month to Netflix and Hulu, and I have access to all of that stuff, okay? The concept of ownership of DVDs is dying. The concept of ownership of music CDs is dying or dead. I already mentioned Zipcar. Turning art. I don't know if anybody actually uses this one, but I thought it was really cool because the concept of owning artwork for your home is dying. You just rent it. When you want to change it, you get new stuff. Rent the runway. Even clothing can be rented. Even the concept of owning your own clothes seems to be disappearing. And I know I'm pushing this analogy quite far. I get that. But the point is to make you guys think a little bit and make you think a little bit how the world is changing around you when you're building the technologies and the products that you guys are building today. Oh, play, forgot. Legos, all the stuff that your kids played with, or you play with, or played with as a kid, those are going too. Now you'll just get a box shipped to your house once a month. When you're done playing with those and your kids are bored of the Legos, you send them back and they send you a new batch. They send you a bunch of new toys. You don't even own your kids' toys anymore. So what's this mean to your business? This means you should stop acquiring products as much as possible and start acquiring services. Today, that's not going to be a wholesale, I'm not going to buy any more physical items. It's not going to work today. Maybe 50 years from now it will. But there's a transition period, and you should always look to using an OpEx model, a service-based OpEx model, whenever possible. So that's the services you need that come into your business. Okay, there's a number of really good benefits I outlined as to why you should do that. And then when you're putting it outbound to your customers, whatever you're building for your customers, try to figure out what the business model is that wraps a service around it. Okay, because that's the long-term recurring revenue that you're going to want to build. So let's talk a little bit about the latter one, understanding your business. So the product model, the customer buys a light bulb, okay? You have no insights. GE has no insights to how I use light bulbs in my home. They have no idea that my kids leave literally 7 light bulbs on upstairs every single morning when they go to school. They have no idea how much waste happens there. They have no insights into anything, and they don't hook me as a customer, right? So it causes rapid commoditization and race to the bottom for physical items, for that physical item. I mean, there's no competition for light bulbs. Well, if you want to bring in the new LED stuff. But in general, there was no competition for light bulbs. They were commoditized. You just bought whatever the cheapest light bulb was, and you went with it. Let's wrap a services model around the light bulb. Again, contrived example, but it's enough to get you guys thinking about it, right? So the customer gets the light bulb or a package of light bulbs or even all the light bulbs they want for life for free. Okay, the physical item's free. Customer pays a service fee of $5 a month, the light bulb fee. Now, yes, this is a single product. You've never paid just a light bulb fee. You bundle it into a larger solution, a larger package of household goods, things like that. But what do you get, what does GE get selling their light bulbs in this manner? It's internet connected, so they know how I used it. They know how frequently I turn it on, turn it off. They know what colors I like if it's an LED color changing. Are they loyal to the brand? Do they only use GE in their house, or they only have one GE light bulb in their home? They get a lot of customer attachment loyalty. They use the mobile app, continue customer engagement. You get a feedback loop out of a service. You don't get a feedback loop out of a product. And that's the most important part. The service's feedback loop is how you build a long-term successful company. Not a product, not selling an individual product and hoping like hell it gets used. The service's feedback loop shortens the feedback cycle and gives you feedback in real time. You can see what features of your light bulb were used. AKA, Tyler never ever turns the green on, he always keeps his home in pink, right? Or whatever the particular features for your service or product that you're building are. The data returned is accurate, high quantity, high quality, high fidelity data. At the end of the day, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with lean startup and fail fast and all of those mantras, right? This is like the perfect breeding ground for that great forward-thinking model. Services fail fast. They help you understand, they help you iterate, they help you A/B test your features, products, solutions to fail as quickly as possible and get your services to exactly what the customer needs as quickly as you can. And so the fundamental number one thing is it builds an annuity. And again, this is from the finance side, okay? Annuity is essentially going to be a recurring revenue stream that grows over time, AKA your 401k. That's an annuity, right? Assuming above zero return on that investment, it's annuity, it builds over time, compounds on itself. So if we look at the account value with what's called a negative 5% churn on the left, and the account value with a positive 5% churn on the right. So churn is the percentage of customers or customer value that you lose in a period of time. So if you're at, say, 1% positive, 1% customer churn, or revenue churn, you lose 1% of your revenue every whatever quarter, month, whatever your period of measurement is. As long as you're building customer count faster than your churn, you'll still go up in total revenue, and that's a good thing. You'll make a great business. As you can see, at a 5% churn on the right, it gets up to $750 from its original, I forget what the original seed was, but it grows to $750. The same seed on the left with a 5% negative churn, meaning you upsell your customers, returns $1,500, returns double the revenue in the same period of time, just by upselling 5% revenue to your customers in the period of time. I think it was monthly. So what's that tell you? Don't just sell a product, sell a service, and then upsell that service over time, okay? Because you can double your revenue. You can make a much better annuity out of that model than you can selling light bulbs. Everybody familiar with LTV and CAC terms? If you're not, I highly recommend getting familiar with them. They create what's called the magic number, or the services magic number, the SMN. Lifetime value is the lifetime value that you get from a customer, okay? And yes, everybody has to estimate that usually up front when they're at your guys' stages. As you grow and become bigger companies and you have more data to work from, the LTV is going to be one of your most important metrics that you can watch. At the same time, the CAC, or the customer acquisition costs, is the second most important metric that you can watch. And the ratio to that is extremely important. That magic number tells you what the total amount of money you make off a customer is and how much money you have to spend to get that customer in the first place. With a product, that's a much tighter ratio. With a service, you can make the LTV number very large if you don't lose the customer, because they're a recurring revenue stream. So this magic number is extremely important. A magic number greater than 1 means your business will win. And a magic number less than 1 means you're going to lose, okay? Because it's costing you more to get customers than making them in the lifetime of your customer. So pay attention to this model when you're building your services, when you're building your business model. Get these estimates as accurate as you can, and continue to refine them as you build your business over time. And finally, recurring revenue streams, okay? They're valued by the stock market and the investor, the public investor and the private investor, way more than one-time revenue models. Products are one-time revenue models. Recurring revenue stream are services, okay? If we look at this graphic, and I know you can't see it, heck, I can't see it, I'm up here. I would say at least 90% of the unicorns listed here, these are all the companies at $1 billion valuation or more. At the time they got that $1 billion valuation, at least 80 to 90% of them are services-based companies getting insane multiples by the investors because they recognize the annuity and the recurring revenue streams that come with a services model. We can go on, I can go on a long rant about unicorns being overvalued and all of those things, and I'm happy to because I love that rant, but this slide I put up there to indicate the percentage of highly valued companies that are services-based companies. So I'm just going to close with a photo of Abraham Lincoln. At the end of the day, you know, it's funny, I've done 4 or 5 startups now, some successful, some not successful, and you know, I learned a lot around that, and you know, one of the things that I learned is that studying, preparing, and trying to look at the changes that are coming in the market, the changes that are coming with the buyer, and predicting what those trends look like and being ahead of that curve, or studying what's going to be successful for you is what's going to help you win as a business long term. So Abraham Lincoln, I will study and get ready, and perhaps my chance will come. So I implore you guys to think a little bit outside the box with your business models. Think a little bit outside the box with products or services that you're creating. And you know, I wish you all really, really good luck building those services successfully. So, any questions?
What about leasing a car? I just heard this debate, you know, never lease a car. Is that a service?
It's absolutely a service, and that I would say the never lease a car argument is 20 years old and probably should be at least reconsidered. I'm not saying it should be overturned, could be reconsidered, because you've got a depreciating asset that you can pay far less for. It depends on, there's a number of factors that go into leasing a car, how long you hold the car, what's the value, what's the depreciation time, all of those kinds of things. But like I said, it's not going to change statically today. This is something that I feel is going to happen over the next. And at least I'm not standing between you and food, so that's a good thing. I'm not going anywhere, so if anybody has any questions, yeah?
I don't know exactly how this is a question, but like, it's kind of a negative reaction to some services, like Adobe Creative Suite.
Yep.
You used to pay $600 or whatever. They switched it to a service-based model. You pay $50 a month. So now you're selling out $600 a year.
Mm-hmm.
People hate that, inevitably. Now there's a company, Sketch, has a version of basically Illustrator.
Yeah.
$100. Everyone's buying it. It's awesome.
Yep.
It's product. So I feel like that there's going to be or potentially there'll be a
backlash.
A backlash where people are like, okay, now we can offer cheap products.
Yep.
And maybe that's 5 to 10 years down the road.
I definitely think you'll see it do a sine wave if we were to do like product versus service. It'll sine wave, but I think it will eventually sine wave to the services side over time. It's just what you're talking about is just a natural competitive nature.
And that's probably also sad pricing or whatever.
Yep.
A giant company that has a huge market share. So
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes it's so funny when I give this talk, sometimes people look at me like I'm freaking insane. They're just like, that's never going to happen. You're pushing this way too far. And I welcome the constructive criticism there. So, yeah.
Okay, so what about this freemium models versus the product model? There's some people who just don't like to sit in the middle in terms of the service model. Okay? Like an office service model, or they would rather just buy an office suite and get one, use it for 2 years or 3 years, and when it comes obsolete, they'll buy another one. Well, usually consumption perspective, I'm the guy who doesn't want to pay $10.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And I don't want to give $1.99 per song, so I'll sit in the premiums category.
Oh, sure.
And I'm comfortable. So, like, what are your thoughts on the premium market versus the service?
You know, it's about defining what your customer features are that particular customer is willing to pay for. It's about understanding the willingness to pay from that customer. You're never going to get 100% of all of your customers to be willing to pay, right? That would be, 100% of all the population willing to pay. There's always going to be a adjustment there. So, I think if you're gaining value from the freemium customer, meaning you're getting feedback loop metrics, you're improving your services from that customer for your paid customers, I don't see, and I bundle them into my customer acquisition costs for my paid customers, right? That's kind of a loss that way. So there's no reason that you should, as you're building your business, kick out free customers. But you have to look at the return on what they're giving you for that free side. Because that's never going to change. There's always going to be a subset of folks who just say, just give me the free stuff. Anyone else?
Just to reiterate your point about taxes, and just based on business taxes, I realize how important it is to avoid capital expense, think an operational expense, but that is a real thing. Appreciate that. 3 years, 5 years, 20 years.
Yeah, it's a super pain to actually handle that, and I'm not a tax guy, so I didn't dive into it in any more detail than that. Definitely go talk to your tax person on how you're doing your taxes there. But I do know and have been told from multiple sources that OpEx is the way to go, if at all possible.
And I think that's one reason for that.
It's absolutely one reason why cloud is taking off. Absolutely. Yeah.
How has this model or this perspective shifted specifically in your company? Maybe particular decisions or the avenue that you've gone?
That's a great question. I think that's one of the best questions I've ever had giving this talk. Yeah. Usually I just get angry people who tell me I'm nuts, but so that's a great question. So my company is a security company. So if I go back in my career a little bit, I actually spent 8 years as a offensive penetration tester security guy. So I spent 8 years breaking into websites, networks, you name it, I've broken into them. Everything from Best Buy to the executive office of the President of the United States, I've broken into their networks. And so that's a manual process, right? Yeah, it was fun. It was a number of years ago, but it started as a manual process. So what happened in that world, if we were to take that kind of community, that market from 2001 when I started, 99, 2001 when I started, to today, it started manual, then a ton of products came up around it to automate what those manual people were doing. Automated penetration testing tools, automated defense tools for security, right? And these were all licensed tools. A lot of these companies went public, made a killing. What I am doing now with the company that I have in LA, Signal Sciences is the name of the company, we are a cloud-based service for web security. So you plug in a little plugin into your web server, and it connects up back to a cloud system where we can get network effects and a number of other things. And we're taking what used to be, buy yourself a web application firewall from Imperva for $100,000, and we're turning it into a service. So it fundamentally sits at the core of my latest startup. So
I have a question. When you're like trying to sell to customers, how do you have to educate them? Like, is this like
Absolutely.
a new model, and how have you approached that?
Absolutely. So that education comes under your customer acquisition costs, and it's part of your marketing dollar.
Yeah.
Right? So I bundle that into what it costs me to get customers. So when you're pushing the boundary on a new model, when you're reinventing a product to a service, you have to educate your customers. Absolutely. Sometimes they're just not going to get it. There's a few different ways you can do that, right? A lot of it's in the marketing side of how you present it and spin it. A lot of it's in the viral nature of what you're building too sometimes, especially if you're doing like a consumer play. Any kind of growth hack that you can hook onto it is going to be very, very important as well. But yeah, education certainly takes a piece of it. And this has nothing to do with what I do on my daily business per se, other than it's kind of a fundamental, I guess, approach that I've had to business for a while now.
Okay, so my last question is, was there like a runway time that you found like it took like 10 months to really start shifting the customer perspective, or is that something that's constantly?
That's a constant, right from the get-go when you're going, because we're literally reinventing a product right now into service, and I'm doing webinar series, I'm doing constant, social media efforts, tons of marketing stuff around education of my buyers, specifically to why the service model is better. Yeah, and it has to be factored in right from the get-go. Back there, he was up first.
What you're talking about, what you're saying about ownership was interesting to me, and it reminded me of an article that I just read about how a lot of the shared economy startups are sort of starting to fail now, and one of the insights around that was like, there's the stat that like anybody that has a drill only uses it for like 8 minutes ever, so there should be a service that just connects you with people in your neighborhood, so you can always borrow a drill or whatever. But then at the end of the day, it turns out that like people kind of don't care. They'll just like go buy a drill for $80 and it's fine.
Right, and I agree. And the reason why is because that drill doesn't have any true service connected to it. It's a physical item that doesn't have any services wrapped around it that make it valuable to rent that drill.
Right, but if the service was, if the startup was providing a service, the startup being the thing that connects one neighbor to another, so that everyone can have a drill and nobody has to own it, if that service is failing, what does that sort of say about the?
Yep. Just that it needs to be reinvented some other way is the way I would do it. You know, it's sometimes hard to make those leaps today. I think the light bulb example is a good example. You know, I would pay, you know, $5 a year, $10 a year to have all the light bulbs I want delivered to the house that are managed and secured, right? It's contrived because maybe it's like a whole box of household goods or something like that. That's the real service. But it has to have, the item has to have a true service that makes it worthwhile to do it. And I think people just, for the sharing economy, they've decided the service isn't worthwhile. They'd rather own it. Right? So you got to figure out what that service is that takes it over the edge, that gets the customer willing to use the service. And that's going to take time. That's why I think it's a 20, 30-year run. Anyone else? Cool. Well, I'm going to be floating around, so if you have any questions, just let me know.